The executive session of February 15th, which we opened up at 2 o'clock, and reconvene the public commission meeting of February 15th, Port of Bellingham. We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Bell.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shepard.
Here.
And Commissioner Briscoe is present. I'd like to take a minute. We had a long time, or lifetime, Whatcom County resident and lifetime fisherman pass away here a few days ago, Gary Brandt. So if we could just take a minute for Gary. Gary was the operator of the fishing vessel Brookfield. His family has been a fishing family in Whatcom County for a long time. So, and also like to take a minute, if we could, for the 2 law officers that were shot up here recently in Maple Falls, for them and their families. It's a dangerous profession. I respect the people that are involved in law enforcement. I'd like to take a moment for them and their families. Okay, moving forward with our advisory committee meetings. I know I'm going to get corrected sooner or later on this one. So.
I think you're good.
Okay, the MAC meeting, the Marina Advisory Committee, March 8th, 6 p.m. on Zoom. And the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee, the BIAC, April 14th at 4 p.m. on Zoom. And those are the meetings. Do we have any public comment at this point in time? Rob, do you have anyone waving their hand there? Or?
So we have one person in the room. Mr. Burrell, did you have public comment, or are you just observing? Just observing. Anyone online? I've got John Lesso with his hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself and make your comment.
Can you hear us, John? You're on mute, John. You're on mute. Hey, whatever's going on, John, you're still muted there. Is that on our end or his end, Rob?
That's on his end.
Okay. Something on your end there, John, with the audio. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, John.
Okay, great. I just wanted to reiterate the statement that I made 2 weeks ago at your
Could you
meeting
just
on
excuse
February
me, John?
1st, inviting the commissioners to come to Point Roberts to see what was going on. That invitation is still outstanding, and I do expect you to do that sooner rather than later, so we can dispense with this idea that the Port of Bellingham is going to acquire the Point Roberts Marina. The speculation is still rife that that's happening. The best way to do that is to come up and have a look at Point Roberts. Now, I'm not sure what your travel constraints are. However, you should be able to get up for the afternoon and go back. It's not that far, particularly now because there have been some loosening of travel restrictions. So I will be there waiting for you. That is Bobby, Ken, and Michael individually. And I'll take you on a little trip through Point Roberts. Won't take long, maybe an hour, and you can see just what's going on there. But I am going to continue. I'm going to come to every meeting and remind you of this, because this has to be put to bed once and for all. Thank you.
Okay, John, you need to state your full name and address, please, for the record.
John Lesso, Point Roberts.
Okay.
And John, can you give me at least until March, because I've got a job walk I've got to do out of state that's going to take me at least 10 days or so to be here at the end of the month. So can I get a reprieve to March?
Can I be glad to?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I'm fishing as well, John, so I'm not sure when I'm going to get there. But I will reiterate that at this point in time, the port has no plans on the table to do anything. So just as soon as something hits the table, we'll have our feet on the ground and we'll be there to see you. But we're not going to do, I'm not going to do anything until we're actually involved in some kind of negotiation for property, or we're considering coming and getting it, so, that's when you'll see me.
However, Point Roberts is part of Whatcom County. We pay taxes to the Port of Bellingham. And the fact that none of you have been up there recently and we're still talking about purchase of the marina is something you should certainly visit. And it's not that far. I mean, for crying out loud, when I was on the Planning Commission, I made 2 meetings a month for 8 years. It's not that far.
Okay, very good, John.
I'll even buy you lunch.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Any other public comment out there? I see a couple other names I don't recognize. Is there anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Please unmute yourself. Commissioners, I think that's it for public comment.
Okay, one last call for public comment if you couldn't hear our executive director. Anyone? Okay, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Please, Gary.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through D.
Discussion? Anything?
I don't have any either.
I don't either. I think some of this is, most of this, in fact, all of it, I think, has been gone over.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I had all my questions answered by staff earlier in the week.
Very, very studious of you.
Carrie, if you please.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through D.
Commissioner Shepard,
Yes.
Commissioner Bell.
Yes.
What's in the water? Commissioner Bell is a Briscoe. Carries 3-0. Or Commissioner Briscoe's yes. How about that one? That'd be better yet. It must be the water. I'm drinking it too. Okay, yeah, and I think we have a presentation, Carrie?
We do. Community outreach update by Stephanie Wiley.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I am happy to be here and to give a bit of an update on community outreach, what has been going on social media for 2021, and also what our plans are, what our event calendar looks like for 2022. Oh, if I can figure out how to do this. All right. So first, I just want to start off with a little bit about why social media is such a powerful tool when it comes to marketing the port and what is happening, kind of being able to communicate with the community at large, what all is going on within the Port of Bellingham as an organization. I looked this up earlier. There are currently 4.55 billion social media users around the world, which is about 57% of our total global population. So a huge amount of people use social media, and they use it to read the news. They use it to see what is being talked about in their online community, and they use it to find things to do and things to buy. So it's a really, really powerful tool. With social media, there is a great opportunity for increased awareness of the organization. There's a really broad reach, as I said, that 4.55 billion users. There's also the ability to target particular groups. For example, we're able to target our Canadian customers for BLI, for the airport, to be able to let them know what's going on and what services they can expect at the airport. It is a very, very low cost, if any, to be able to push out posts on social media. There's really easy ways to increase traffic to the website just by sharing links and including the website address in posts. And there's really great customer and audience engagement. So if somebody has a question on one of our posts, we're able to respond to that question almost in real time. So it's a really, again, just a really great tool. I really like this infographic kind of explaining all of the different social media channels. I am a huge fan of donuts, so this just spoke very strongly to me. Right now, the port has 3 social media channels that we're using: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Though we do kind of keep an eye on the other social media channels and see, okay, what makes sense for us to use as a tool, what makes sense with our audience and what makes sense with our goals and what we're trying to do. Looking at the last 3 years across our 3 platforms, our social media followers have increased every single year, which is really great. We saw a big increase in 2020. There were a lot of people turning to social media for news and for happenings during the pandemic, a really quick and easy way to get good information. And we're just continuing to grow that. And the goal is to continue that growth through 2022. We did just take on Dockside Market as a part of community outreach for the port. And I wanted to pull the stats from their Facebook and Instagram pages the last 2 years. They had a lot of growth and a lot of engagement in the last 2 years, but we also have a huge opportunity to increase their followers and increase their engagement just through our main port pages. So we're really excited to be able to provide that extra support to Dockside because so much of their information goes out through social media. It's where people can find the vendors that are going to be at the market, what kind of fish are going to be available at the market, and if there are any vendors that are selling on a non-market day. And just an FYI, engagements are anytime that someone reacts, comments, or shares on your post. So it's any of those 3 actions is considered an engagement. And I also thought this was really helpful information about our social media, just looking at the messages that we're getting in through each of the 3 platforms, what the sentiment is. A lot of people say that the internet is just for complaining, but we see pretty neutral and or positive messages coming through for the most part. So we want to continue that trend and continue to have it be just a helpful resource for those looking for information about what's going on at the port. And I have a few slides that have some examples of the types of posts that we share, because we do share a broad range of posts from all divisions within the port. You can see the reach each of these has had. You can see the engagements that it's had, any comments, any shares, what kinds of posts people are really liking and engaging with. So some of the things that we may share may be National Weather Service announcements, giving our marinas customers a heads up that there may be a storm coming in. So batten down the hatches, or any visitors coming to any port property. If we have any projects going on, construction, paving projects, engineering projects that may impact their visit to the port, we like to get those updates out through social media. It's also a really great way to share any of the corporate events that we have on port property. So we had Holiday Port in December, and we did all of the gingerbread houses voting online this year. So people are able to go to our Facebook page, go to our Instagram, and just click a link to go and vote for their favorite gingerbread house, so we could still have that event happen this year. We also like to share any commission meetings that are happening, so people can go to our Facebook page and really easily find the link to the current or past commission meetings. We had this great post from when Rick Steves visited Blaine Harbor and had a little chat with Andy Peterson, the harbor master up in Blaine. And we also like to share posts that include resources for any of the members of our community that they may not be aware of. So that's a bit about our social media. Are there any questions about social media so far?
Commissioner Bell, do you have any questions for Stephanie?
No, Stephanie, I tend to see the one for LinkedIn more than I see the rest of them, and it's just been a fabulous PR campaign. I enjoy it. Thanks.
Good, yeah.
Commissioner Shepherd.
I don't have any questions either, but I do benefit from a lot of the Facebook posts, and I think they look really nice, and I am always glad. I think a big part of our job is communicating what the port and what the commission does. I feel like it's a big part of my job, and this is helping me to be able to do that, because a lot of people don't know what we do, and this is a great way to inform people and raise that awareness.
Absolutely.
Stephanie, this is a great presentation here. It kind of spells out for the people what we're doing. It gives, once again, it allows people, if they're watching, if they watch the meeting, to find out how to find things out. Can we back up to the online following, that graph you had there?
Yes.
Yeah, that one there. So what is, I'm assuming that's 3 years back?
Yes. So this was the lightest green is 2019, that middle green is 2020, and the yellow is 2021. So for the past 3 years, what our total follower count was at the end of the year.
Was there a big spike 3 years ago? Do we know how, basically, do you have the information for prior to 3 years?
I didn't pull back farther than 3 years. I'm happy to go back and pull that. I just pulled from 2019 because I thought it was interesting to see the changes between 2019 and 2020 because there was so much more activity in 2020 just due to the pandemic.
Right.
So I didn't pull back farther than that at this
Yeah,
point.
and 19 was kind of the start of the pandemic, really. So I was kind of curious if there was a big spike between 18 and 19 there. So for us, maybe you could let us know if you've got time.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I can pull
If
that.
there was a big change there, because I kind of think you might find something like that there. At least I feel that way. But this is very good.
Yeah.
I'm glad, the people of Whatcom County are basically the owners of the Port of Bellingham. Or not basically, they are. So it's means a lot to me that they can access our websites and get information on what's going on here. So everything we do is public information. So the more people access the sites that you prepare and put together for them to access, the better off the port is in doing its job. People understand what we're doing, so we get input, and that input helps us. It helps us to know the direction that the people of the county really want to go. So thank you very much for your presentation. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do have a little bit more if that's
can I-
okay.
Okay.
I've got one more question for you. Have you looked
Yeah.
into doing anything with the TikTok platform? I don't know
Uh,
how
we-
interested you are in dancing, but I always poll my students at Western about what platforms they use, and younger people are certainly using that platform in greater capacity than they are Facebook and things that they see as old people platforms, which like me.
Yes, they are. We do, Casey Cook, who's the coordinator of the Marine Life Center, has a TikTok that she does for the Marine Life Center because that is definitely a younger audience for those visiting the center. We haven't necessarily considered it overall for the port yet. Our audience tends to be a little bit older than what the trends are for TikTok, but it's certainly a possibility. I find it very entertaining. So maybe someday in the future, we will add TikTok into our suite of social media pages.
Thanks.
I'm sure we could come
Yeah.
up with a commissioner shuffle to a ditty tune of some kind.
I think that's a great idea.
chant.
We'll
Of course,
put
Katie's
that
20
first
years
on the
old too,
list.
right?
So I also
Pay to
wanted
see
to
that, wouldn't
share
you?
our event calendar for 2022. We're really excited in community outreach that things seem to really be going back to normal. We're getting a really full slate of events for meetings and events, for corporate events, for the Marine Life Center, and for Dockside Market coming on board as well. So I wanted to share just a little bit about what we have going on. So of course, each month we have our 2 Dockside Markets, the first and third Saturdays of the month. In March, you'll also see we have the start of the Ocean Block for most of the Bellingham area public schools. And this impacts greatly the Marine Life Center. They see a ton of classes come through as field trips during their Ocean Block. And this year, Casey, the Marine Life Center coordinator, is really working on getting some good curriculum that they'll be able to do down at Marine Park. So they can have more kids come as a group than what we can fit in the Marine Life Center right now, and still get some good hands-on real person experience with what they're learning in that ocean block. So that's pretty exciting. We have Ski to Sea coming back this year, also very exciting in May. And July, of course, we have a full slate of big events happening. We have the 4th of July. And then that next weekend, we also have Northwest Tune-Up, which is the 3-day biking event that's happening down, mountain biking event that's happening down at the downtown waterfront. So we're really excited about all of these big events coming back up. Looking ahead into September, that's another really big month as well. We have the end of Summer Bash at Trackside that we partner with the Downtown Bellingham Partnership and Colshin. Bellingham Sea Feast is that month as well. And we also have the Bellingham Bay Marathon that's going to be going through Squalicum Harbor as a part of their race. So we have really good stuff coming up. Along with all of these big events, Meetings and Events right now has 140 private events booked throughout our venues from March through September. So we're really ramping back up into that pre-COVID number of events, which is very exciting. And we're especially thrilled to have the Fisherman's Pavilion this summer. We have had so many people reach out to us and ask about renting that space that are just so excited to be able to use that for their private events. So we're really thrilled to see things really just picking up speed and getting back to normal. And then I have one last piece that I'm going to share with you. We, a couple weeks ago, released Hero, the octopus that we had at the Marine Life Center. And Jerry McGarity, who's on the community outreach team, put together a really great video. So I thought I'd share that with you.
Hero came to us missing an arm and obviously blind in one eye from previous damage that had healed over, but he was struggling. He wasn't doing well in the wild. In his short stay here from July 31st through January, he regained almost full hunting skills. He was able to figure out how to hunt within his tank live animals again, and had confidence that he didn't have when he first arrived. The spot we released him couldn't have been more beautiful. It was a nice cold day like they like, and the water was beautiful green, and the trees were just lovely, and it was a very gentle little cove.
Hero was a really special octopus. We don't always get animals that need as much rehabilitation that Hero needed, but he is doing so great, and I know he's gonna go out there and live a really great life, and he's in a really great spot, and I'm sure he's gonna impress all the lady octopuses.
All right, and that is it for my presentation, my community outreach update. Are there any other questions that I can answer for you?
Commissioner Bell. Commissioner Shepherd. And I have none, just as thank you for the presentation. It's great, and that people can tune in on YouTube and watch the same presentation and find out what we got going on, what it's about. So thank you, Stephanie.
Absolutely, thank you.
So I guess we have an action item, Carrie.
We do. Motion to approve amendments to the Bellingham International Airport 2022 Capital Improvement Program to include a new security project in Parking Lot A, and to update projects to include additional federal funding allocated through the airport through American Rescue Plan, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which will become public law after CIP is approved, and authorize the executive director to accept and execute the related federal aviation administrative grants. Emily?
Thank you, Carrie. That was a long one. Good morning, Commissioners. Emily Philippi, Airport Operation Managers. The item that is in front of you today as an action item are amendments to the aviation's capital budget, as well as authorizing Mr. Fix, when those grants do come in, to execute and then accept those grant offers that are in conjunction with those capital projects. So the changes that we have, or what prompted those changes that you see in front of you, are kind of a twofold. So we have the Port of Bellingham is on a calendar year budget cycle, and the federal grants are on a fiscal year cycle. So when the Port of Bellingham adopted this budget, there's two key federal infrastructure acts that were not yet in place, that we weren't aware of what that funding actually meant for the Port of Bellingham and specifically the airport. So with that additional funding of those acts that came after that budget approval came some additional money. So the aviation staff has been anticipating these additional grants and some funding. So we've really worked the last year and a half with our consultants to get a really good idea of what those projects would entail and to make sure that they're shovel ready. So when these legislations were passed, that the Port of Bellingham could jump on those projects and receive the federal funding. So with that additional funds, it really did prompt us to take a look at our capital budget and how we could move things around to fully capitalize and get that full funding for the Port of Bellingham. And then if you were to approve that, this would secure that federal funding. So there's two acts that it's referring to in the memo. We have both the American Rescue Plan, and that's 100% federal funding for the port. And then we also have the Infrastructure Investment and Job Act, which that mimics very closely to our regular FAA grants, which is the 90% federal funding and then the 10% of the port match. So a lot of our capital projects that you see in here, especially all the airfield related ones, will be at that 90-10 split. One additional item that we have tied in with this action item is also an additional capital budget line item for additional funding to enhance our security for our paid parking lots, both our main lot as well as our Economy A lot adjacent to our commercial terminal. We've unfortunately seen an increase in criminal activity out there, and this budget line item would allow us to get some additional high resolution security cameras in both of those lots, as well as physical barriers, so fence or other mechanisms to kind of keep out those criminal activities from that airport. So with that, the port recommends the approval of the capital budget as you see in front of you. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Emily. Commissioner Shepard.
So are all of these the 90% match that we're seeing with the infrastructure? Are there any examples of the AARP funding here?
The ones that we have, that grant actually went to you guys. It was an additional roughly $4 million back in August of 2021. And we've been working with Tamara and her team that's going to be the additional funding for all of the debt payment services for the commercial terminal that we currently have, as well as those ongoing operational costs. So those will be at the 100%, as well as we're still awaiting an additional concessionaire grant through that will be at 100%. But do keep in mind that is for our concessionaires. So that's a relief to our car rental facilities, but the port will keep 2% of that grant to administer that back to them.
Okay, so those ARPA funds really are backfilling the losses that we experienced at 100% of
Correct.
those
Yep.
losses, and this new funding here from the infrastructure package are going to allow us to do these shovel-ready projects that all have good, outcomes and jobs associated with them as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Just looking for this fiscal year, what we currently have planned is both our construction of a snow removal equipment facility as well as some additional airfield work to realign one of our taxiways. That huge benefits not only to the safety of the airport, but also, securing some of those funds, especially jobs within Whatcom County.
And I guess for these parking lot improvements, is this going to be enough? I know the catalytic converter theft is just all over the place. I'm sure that's driving this here as well. Is this going to be enough to get this under control?
We're kind of taking a multi-prong approach to it. We've had, unfortunately, confirmed like 5 catalytic converters from our economy A-lot as well as a vehicle. And we have not only instituted some additional procedures with our own staff, you know, we have our aircraft rescue firefighters that are there 24/7, instituted, you know, hourly patrols, and as well as kind of repositioned some of our current cameras that we're keeping a closer eye on. We thankfully haven't had any additional reported in the last week. And we have been able to not only identify a suspect and get a face shot of that individual, as well as a license plate and a lot of footage that we have uploaded to Whatcom County Sheriff's Office. So I'm not certain anything's going to be foolproof, right? Unfortunately, these criminals, they're very brazen these days. But we do think these high resolution cameras, we don't have full coverage right now. And this will be a huge improvement to the securing those facilities.
Does our Pacific Security monitor the airport, or do they operate on our other facilities?
Yeah, they do not. We have been working with Norm Smith with some of these increased patrols that they have kind of scan some of the outer peripheral, like airport land, but they're nothing that's with our aircraft rescue firefighters that are there 24/7.
And is that just a contract decision, or do they not have a?
Yeah, it's just a contract decision. I mean, we have our ops folks at the airport that it's always been sufficient to date. It's not anymore. Emily did a great presentation. I'm just going to add to that this is a conversation that's being had port-wide, not just at the airport. And we're engaged with how we're going to do security going forward and what that means, not just from a camera and fencing perspective, but also a personnel perspective and Pacific Security being outsourced or do it in-house, et cetera. So I think you'll see a lot more requests coming forward to upgrade our cameras to higher resolution, to get more cameras, to get more fencing, and an increase in personnel costs to address the security issues.
Okay, that's all my questions on this one. Thank you, Emily.
Mr. Bell?
Any discussion about the tower?
In regard,
Upgrading the tower, making the tower a tower?
we have continued those discussions. However, the FAA has been very transparent with us that they will not be funding that. So I feel like we worked that from many angles, as appreciate everyone's input, but that really is going to be a tower decision or an FAA decision, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that on the record because that's one of the most often asked questions by the airport, private airport users, and their rationale for not funding it.
Again, it goes through our unique situation that we have with the Bellingham Airport of both Canadian radar services. We're very unique in that aspect of our close proximity to the Canadian border, and that it's an FAA control tower overlined by Canadian airspace of the aircraft that are coming into our airport. So it's a very unique situation.
And they're not going to budge.
All of our efforts, unfortunately, have not been successful.
So they need to take their appeal to the federal level and maybe contact a congressman or a senator.
Affirmative.
Got it. Thank you for affirming that. The second one is a little more broad. I'd like to know what we're doing in the next few years about developing the undeveloped property around the airport for industrial uses and other types of uses.
Yeah, so we're trying to make our airport as attractive as possible, right? So that's not only, we took our tariff to you guys in the last commission meeting, that we're trying to hold those fees consistent to not only make that attractive for our current users as well as some additional, but we do have some pieces of property that are with our airport master plan on the west side, but that does come with some challenges. You know, there's no current power or water that's out there, but we have been working with the real estate division as well as Don Goldberg to try to advertise those parcels of property. But if you guys haven't been out to the airport, we're very excited that I guess conjunction project that we have with Alpha Technologies. Our taxi lane kilo is well underway that we're anticipating kicking up construction again here in the spring. And that's going to be a huge asset to Whatcom County and the airport. Additional taxiways, additional hangars that can attract that additional business as well.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm asking, is we've got a lot of momentum right now, and I'd like to seize on it if we can. So maybe seeing what we can do, not only on the west side, but we've got a few properties on the east side of the airport that are ours as well, that we could do some enhancement.
Yeah, and Elliott has a substantial list of companies looking for more space, and we're going to try and marry those two up and see how many of those can be realistic for the airport, and if so, who builds those buildings.
Are we gonna need additional budget allocations for that?
Depends on how those conversations pan out. I mean, ideally, we partner with the private sector who does the buildings on leased land from us, but if the private sector won't build the buildings, then I think we'll be coming to you to build the buildings.
Yeah, we probably got some infrastructure we've got to put down to make them ready. I mean, if we really want some pads, maybe
Yeah.
we have to be proactive.
And maybe some of that money can come from EDI as well.
Exactly. That's all I got.
I only have a couple questions, clarity for me. Down on construction runway shoulders. We have two of them there. I see those have been crossed out, and you go over to 2027 revised. Has that stuff been moved out there?
Correct, yes.
And can you explain to me why the numbers grow so much?
Yes, I alluded to, we've been working with a consultant to get an actual realistic view of what those costs would be. And like everything within the county right now, construction prices are skyrocketing. Even you'll see for our 2022 revised, our construction for our taxiway is $2.5 million. So that would be full runway length shoulders. So we're talking, 6,701, then on both sides, and it's 25 feet out. And a large cost of that is also associated with our single-use runway at our airport. So to not impact our commercial operations, we currently only have a 5-hour window to shut down that runway, construct what we can, and then get that airport back up and operational so that we're not impacting our airlines. So that adds a lot of construction cost for that nightly work.
And I see the lower one is a grant, correct?
Yep, correct. So those are all kind of broken out, and each one of those, that's what we typically show in the budget of what would be the FAA grant. So the total project cost, and then in the parentheses is that 90% that the FAA would pay.
Okay,
So we're just looking at that 10% match.
okay, all right. That was, I was looking at it different. I was thinking, wow, we gotta come up with $9 million on this deal? So, okay, very good. Thank you, Emily. It was a good presentation. Any more questions? Or not presentation, but explanation, I should say. Carrie, if you please.
Motion to approve amendments to the Bellingham International Airport 2022 Capital Improvement Program to include a new security project in Parking Lot A and to update projects to include additional federal funding allocated to the airport through the ARPA, the Infrastructure Investment and Job Act, which will become public law after the CIP is approved, and authorize the executive director to accept and execute the related federal aviation administration grants.
Commissioner Shepard,
Yes.
Commissioner Bell.
Did you breathe at all during that? That's a yes for me. Yes for me.
Commissioner Briscoe's a yes as well. Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the end of our meeting as far as action items there. So I guess we'll do our public comment now. Is there any public comment, Executive Fix?
Anyone in the public wishing to comment, please unmute yourself and speak up.
Well, come on, somebody's got to have something to say. Paul, anything? Okay, hearing no one wishing to comment, we'll move on to other business.
The only other business I've got is,
I guess we're going with him first.
I don't know if you guys have noticed, but they've got a different camera shot coming at us. And I just realized where it was to capture that. So our video
I thought it was for
crew
the back of your heads.
we've got an upgrade from our video department. Just acknowledgement of that. Because, yeah, they were,
Oh, that's my bad side, too.
and y'all know that I was not playing video games. I was actually looking at the airport layout, and I have proof on my computer. No, I have nothing, thank you.
Can't do anything behind the counter here anymore either. What's up with that?
Thank you for that upgrade, because I always thought it was a point lacking of being able to see the speakers, so just acknowledging that.
Commissioner Shepherd.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Alex and the rest of our maintenance team. My family was down at the harbor on Saturday, just like many, many families. It was a beautiful day. The place was packed. And I was just so struck by how great our facilities were looking down there. So I know our maintenance department has been working hard. We've been asking them to take on a ton of operations for us. And it really shows. Our facilities just look fantastic. The new paving turned out great down there. People were out rollerblading and kite flying and just having a great time down there. So it gives me a lot of pride that our facilities look so good and invite the public to enjoy them and really make the best use possible. I know it's been hard to keep facilities up over these past couple of years with challenges with having enough staff and getting people to be able to do their jobs. And I just really feel pleased that we are able to put such a good face for the public. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll pass that on to the maintenance team. I would put our maintenance team up against any maintenance team anywhere. I think they're just that good. I mean, they got hit by flooding. They've been hit by king tides that have torn out dock infrastructure. I mean, if there's been one thing going wrong after another through no fault of their own, natural acts, but they've kept up with it. And they've done the repairs, and they're doing the repairs, and yet our grounds still look amazing, even though they're stressed out in those times. So thank you for that acknowledgement.
Commissioner Bell.
Yeah, I just had one more question for Elliot. We heard that you've got quite a few requests for, or downloads of the proposal for the board mill building. Could you just give us an update of what you're seeing on the horizon?
Yeah, you're muted, Elliot.
Yeah, without going into too much detail, I can tell you we've had around 200 views of the website with RFP documents. I'm seeing, and I'm not able to see specific addresses, but I can see California, Oregon, Washington. We had one recently from Hawaii, another from Florida, and 2 Canadian provinces, Vancouver and British Columbia and Ontario. So we're getting quite a wide set of views on that, and quite a lot of questions coming into us. So good response to date, but no proposals on my desk yet.
Commissioner Briscoe asked if you happened to get one from Ireland.
We have had none outside of North America.
I couldn't help myself. No disrespect, but I was just curious. But it's a longer ways for the envelope to come, so we'll see. Gentlemen, any other business? Thank you, Elliot. I do have one thing, and I sent this to Rob this afternoon, and I don't believe he's had time to look at it. He will forward it on to you. Both of you have been in the WECOG, I think, right? Both of you have been on the?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know, are either one of you familiar with the Smart Trips program?
Oh, I sure am.
Okay,
As
so.
an avid bike rider.
So anyways, they're short on funding. They've got some issues there. And I said I would bring it back to our executive director and my fellow commissioners to see if we couldn't help them out. And Rob will get the information to you that I sent, and it'll be self-explanatory, but I got to say, I think it's a very good thing, and I think it'd be a disservice to the people of Whatcom County not to help it continue, and get better and bigger. Actually, I'd like to see it get, when I read the numbers that are in the spreadsheets and stuff that Bob Wilson sent, And the stuff is taken out of the atmosphere in a few years. You know, well, it's been around for a long time, but it's pretty phenomenal. And I think that with the help of the Port of Bellingham, I think we could make it a really, really big deal. So that's kind of all I had. I just kind of wanted to bring that up. And
I'll pass that email forward to the other two commissioners, and then I'll also discuss with our environmental and our economic development teams.
right, really good. So that's all I had. So anything else, gentlemen? I'll give one last call for public comment. If anybody'd like to say anything before the meeting's over. If not, you see anything, Rob?
No, sir.
Meeting adjourned.